So, hello and welcome in. We've got Jeremy here. Hello, how are you doing?
Very good, thank you.
You are the founder of the One Chi project, like myself, and absolutely an aficionado of Qigong. And I just wonder, how long have you been playing with Qigong for?
Well, yeah, I've been teaching Qigong for something like 25 years, but I think I've been studying it for nearly 35 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of came to, in a sort of slightly twisty kind of route to it. I had a really toxic job, and my toxic job left me very, very stressed. I worked in the city for a long time, and this kind of, deep levels of stress that came with that job. I started looking for something that was going to be a kind of an antidote to that lifestyle. And first of all, I started doing yoga. But as I always say, I always kind of joke, you'd think that being in a classroom full of 30 women all lycra clad would be a great thing. But as a bloke in the 1990s or whenever it was, it was just torturous. Boys don't fold in the same way as girls. And so I was kind of like a gnarled tree stump in the corner amongst all these beautiful women. So I liked yoga, but it just didn't quite kind of, fit the bill for me. And then I did 2 years of Tai Chi. I studied various different forms of Tai Chi and really enjoyed it, but somehow it just wasn't fitting the bill. Bizarrely enough, I found Tai Chi to be slightly too stressful, would you believe? You know, constantly kind of like having to, get exactly the right shape and exactly the right posture, and if you missed a single, step, then you'd be way behind the rest of the class, and it was
Well,
just.
I completely agree with you. I have studied some Tai Chi before myself in the past and really enjoy it once you get it. But you're right about this stress factor and the amount of people that come through as our students that say, oh, I tried Tai Chi, but I just couldn't keep up because I had to think. And the whole thing is like, we want to be in the flow. And they're like, I really prefer the movements at the beginning of Tai Chi. And I'm wondering, is this how you got into Qigong?
Actually, no, because what you discover is that, perhaps you've discovered, is that Tai Chi teachers are very cheeky people. They sort of refer to Qigong as this warm-up exercise, and that actually, to be fair, if we look at the history of Qigong, we find it goes back about 5,000 years, and 3,000 years ago, it starts getting written about, and about 2,000 years ago, you can see cave paintings that look like an exercise that I still do, so it's got a little bit more lineage than Tai Chi teachers would have you understand, because Tai Chi is effectively only about 500 years old. Oh, so new.
And some people say that it's the most common form of Qigong as well. But of course, if you had a Tai Chi teacher in here, they might say something else. But we do know that it's very connected. And I think,
Yeah.
do you have an introduction to Qigong at the beginning of Tai Chi? But you're absolutely right. It's just used as a warm up and it's so much more. It's a whole healing art form itself. So,
Indeed.
so how did you find it, or how did Qigong find you then?
Yeah, it found me, actually, is the honest truth. It was one day in Foyle's bookshop, and I was thinking to myself, I can't, I think I may have been looking for a book on Tai Chi. And when one of my children was born, I lost a Tai Chi form from, spending months looking after my kid. And then I built another Tai Chi form up and lost that as well when my second child was born. So I've got two children who owe me a Tai Chi form each. And I went off to Foyle's. I don't know what I was looking for. I think I was looking for some sort of self-help in some way, as a sort of young parent probably does, and a stressful job and two children. And I was just standing on the top floor of Foyle's all on my own, a beautiful sunny day. There weren't even sort of, people there on the floor to kind of help you. It's just me on my own, staring at the self-help section, which was probably about 10 books long at that stage. And then out of nowhere, a book dropped off a shelf about 2 meters away that I hadn't even been over there, And I was sort of standing there looking at this book and thinking, good Lord, what was that? Thought, well, I suppose I better pick you up. I picked it up and it was Daniel Reed's book. It's just called Qigong. And it was kind of like, oh, well, all right, I've heard of you and I'll give you a go. And I read through that and it's a great, lovely book. It's got a whole thing about Chinese medicine and Chinese culture. And it was only after about virtually reading the entire book, I discovered there were a few exercises at the end. And that's where I started.
Wow, I know the book. I know the book you're talking about. Yeah, it's really thorough, isn't it?
Really good. Yeah, and there were just some brocades in it, and I think that's where I
Yes.
started my brocades.
Yeah. So what is it that you love about Qigong?
I I say with no kind of, irony or whatever the phrase is, that, that it saved my life, absolutely saved my life. I worked in this toxic environment, and the more I practiced these simple little exercises, the more sound I felt in myself, the more able, capable, centered I felt. And it was that gave me the power to leave my toxic job in the city, something that had felt impossible beforehand. And then suddenly I found I was going into work and feeling fireproofed. I was going to this incredible environment where until then I'd felt that everything was on me and that it had been a massive weight on my shoulders. And suddenly I realized that, I was turning up in the morning, looking forward to work, feeling powerful, feeling centered, feeling in balance. And, and I was headed for a complete and utter breakdown, I think, if I'd continued in that job. And somehow one morning I woke up and thought, I can leave this job. And that was a shock that, nearly blew my mind. So yeah, it saved my life.
Wow. That personal empowerment, that is so powerful, isn't it? That's what we want. That's what we're,
yeah.
That's what we're doing. So do you adhere to any sort of strict lineage form at all?
Well, not really, no. I've studied various different forms through the years. I studied with Master Lam, and you had to kind of stick to his methods. After that, I studied with Grandmaster Chen, and again, that was the Chen family form of Qigong, and you had to kind of stick to those. But all along the way, none of those teachers were really, I don't know, I stayed with Master Lam for a few years, and I studied with Grandmaster Chen a few times on courses and things like that. But I never really felt that I was owned by any of those forms. And I did so much of my teaching myself, from books and DVDs and things like that, that everything I developed became my own, really. And I didn't feel that I owed lineage to anybody. After that, I studied medical Qigong, and that is indeed an entire system. Which includes therapy, and it includes, all the diagnostic systems that you would use with sort of acupuncture and things like that. And so, yes, for a long time I adhered to that. And now, for the last 12 years, I've been studying Zheneng Qigong. And the odd thing about Zheneng Qigong is that it has kind of superseded everything that I've studied to date. It's a bit crazy because another stream of my life, I would say, was like computing. I've done computing for 20, 30 years probably, and it's funny how computer diagnostics and human diagnostics follow exactly the same structure. There's something very interesting there. But no, when I found Zheneng Qigong, I can only really compare it to, if you know your computing, you have sort of Microsoft and you have Apple, and they're closed systems, and then you have Linux, which is a completely open system that anybody is allowed to play with. And suddenly Zheneng Qigong struck me as being open source. And it may be something to do with the Cultural Revolution and kind of the Communist Party shutting Qigong down for a while, that basically Dr. Pang, who's the founder of it, kind of freed his system out to anybody and kind of gave it away because Qigong was no longer kind of allowed in China. That's another whole story you have to research yourself, as it were. But yeah, so it feels very open form, and it feels very non-lineage. So in a funny way, I suppose I've kind of come through lineages, but I've ended up still with this kind of open form approach to it all.
Oh, I love that. That's just because you've made it your own. It's what makes sense for you. I think as teachers, as facilitators, because teachers a bit of a weird word, we are facilitators of what's
Signposts.
Yes, signposts of what's coming through us to activate other people's energy so that they get their qigong. So there's thousands of different forms, and we can learn from each and every one. But ultimately, it's what makes sense to our energy system that's going to be useful to us.
Yeah, completely.
It's pretty subtle, this stuff. But so, what do you feel like you have gained the most from qigong?
My personal health is one key thing. I wonder every day at the changes that have come about. I used to smoke. I don't smoke anymore. I used to drink. I don't drink anymore. It's kind of like I find myself being much more healthy. And it's not because I see myself as a healthy person. I fundamentally don't. I just find that Qigong kind of edged those things out of the way without my even really noticing how it happened. And so Yeah, the one thing that I really have benefited from is listening inside. It's taught me to listen to my body. And so that's one of the key teachings I give to all of my students. Learn how to listen inside. Learn to listen to what's going on to your body. And as soon as you start to do that, you start to think, oh, that's interesting. What's that problem going on with my neck and my shoulder? And the standard approach is take a Nurofen. The Qigong approach is try and figure out what's going on and see if you can't find some way to loosen it up. And then, you discover that Qigong can't do it all. And you think, well, maybe I should see an acupuncturist, or perhaps I should get someone to massage that, or, whatever. But at least you're thinking about it and you're heading off problems before they arrive. So I'd say my health is astonishingly different.
Oh.
I think I owe it all to Qigong.
I agree. I totally agree. I don't drink coffee anymore, or wine, or any of that. I just don't really want it. That's the thing. I think when there's a place of balance within you, and there's that self nourishment, that self respect going on, you're not reaching for things that are going to take you away from that so much. But it's been a subtle movement towards that. I did used to drink coffee, I did used to drink wine, that kind of thing, but no more. So if you had, and like, for instance, I'm going to lay it on the line here, if you had 2 minutes to share with us one of your favorite forms or meditations around Qigong, what would it be? And would you like to share that with us now?
Yeah, I think so. I'd love to, in fact. That book that fell off the shelf by Daniel Reed, that thrust itself upon me. What happened was that when I lived in London, my bathroom only had a bath, not a shower. And I used to have to get up ridiculously early in the morning for this incredibly stressful job. And when I got to the back of the book and thought, oh, look, there's half a dozen exercises here, I started with exercise number 1. I'm fairly sure it's exercise number 1. And it's just called turning the waist. And it just rotates your spine. And I always link it up with some simple sort of forward or back bend. But for me, that was the first Qigong exercise that really, really caught me. And if you come to one of my classes, I still start every single class with this exercise. I just can't see any reason to ditch it, so I must have taught it, 10,000 times. I'll show you right now. Dead simple.
I think this is one of the ones that we have in common, and I'm interested in other people that we interview, that whether that's going to be the same, because you're right, when we turn from the waist and we clear our spine, then that's going to enable the chi to flow. So okay, take it from here.
Okay, so deep in the belly, legs apart, knees gently bent, nice straight spine, arms hanging down. And then we're just going to turn really from deep inside the core of your body. And you can just start by gently turning, of course, listening inside, feel how your body feels. Gently turn to the other side. If it's all good, then you just release the waist. Let the hands tap onto the body. And so on. There are lots of variations. You can tap on the arms up here. You can turn your foot as you go. But the most simple version is always the best one, which is just that very simple turn. And then what I tend to do is I tend to slow it down a little bit as I've warmed up my back. And then I start to turn my neck and look back over the shoulder. And so that then completes the entire kind of length of the spine. And that, for me, does it. It gets your chi moving at the deepest level. Gets your muscles and spine stretched out. What more could you ask for?
You've got a fan here. I love that. I love it so much. And when we take care of our spines, being that central support, it's going to take care of everything else. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing what you have with us here in that form. Nice one, Jeremy.
Good to speak to you. Thank you.
You're welcome.